The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to the People's View. We have two people here tonight to talk on different things of interest for your town of Nashua. So Donald LeBrun and Carl Seidel. Well, as two ex-legislators, we didn't do well.
We're not ex. We don't call it ex.
We don't call it ex. That's right.
We didn't run for re-election, so we're not ex. We're just former.
Okay, so we're still honorable.
We're still honorable.
Well, I think that what we're trying to do tonight is to talk a little bit about the past election in the city. I think we, as Republicans, didn't do very well as the aldermen. We did get a few people on the Board of Education and the commissioners. But one of the things that I'd like to point out to all of our listeners is that I don't care if you are Republicans or Democrats, when you have one board of aldermen that are all of one party, watch out. You're
in trouble.
I mean, it doesn't make any difference if Republicans or Democrats, because when there's no discussion, no real analyzing the spending of money, no analyzing timing, what you have to do, and things are coming up.
Everything's pre-scripted.
Yeah.
And like you said, whether it's Democrat or Republican,
right.
I mean, neither one is exempt from it.
Right.
It's going to be pre-scripted every time.
So I think that's one of the things people have to wake up and look at some of the things that are happening, look at what happens at the Board of Aldermen meeting, at the Board of Education meetings, and how some of the planning groups are working out. We still haven't really adjusted the assessment group that's running in the air there. There's a 30-some page book that Laura Ortolano developed, and that there's a lot of good questions in there.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to undergo a complete reevaluation, which is going to cost...
That department's still a mess.
Yeah. And the person that had been sleeping on the job and doing other things which are under investigation, still hasn't been fired.
And then an underqualified person was put in charge of the department. Very nice lady, fine lady, but she's unqualified and she knows it.
Not equipped for the analysis that has to be done in assessment. And we're coming up with big projects that are going to have to be approved by the aldermen. I mean, the aldermen have already done something from the arts development, that building and everything.
The performing arts.
The $4 million that was supposed to be collected for an endowment, that's gone. It's now going to be bonded.
Yep.
And the bonding now is what, $25 million?
Something like that, 25 to 40 million, somewhere in that range.
It keeps a
huge amount of money.
Well, they keep changing things too, so...
Well, the longer they wait, it's like anything else. The longer you wait, the price goes up.
Right.
And
the other one that's bigger is the problem with the middle schools. Do we, lose Elm Street and build a new one? Plus refurbish the other two?
Well, there's another case of the price continually going up too. It's well over $100 million now.
Yeah, I think it's going up to 125 now.
Something like that.
And they still don't have all the specifications clear. We went to that meeting just held a couple weeks ago, showing where the development is, and there's a lot of questions that came up by people who are on the Board of Education but are no longer on it.
Yeah.
And I think that they shouldn't have let those people go, because those are the people that were asking the questions. Everybody else was just accepting.
They were demanding answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a shame. We have to watch that. We have to really be careful, make sure the analysis is done, And maybe we can't do all of it at once. Maybe
we waste too much money on consultant fees.
Right, yeah.
I mean, we waste millions and millions of dollars on consultant fees. And then they put the consultation aside, and 2 years later, they want to do another consultation. Look at the rail situation. How much money's been wasted on consult?
Well, they haven't decided exactly what they're going to do with this yet. So that's one thing that the Board of Education.
So that consult would become moot, and they'll want to spend another $1 million on another one.
The only that one isn't coming directly out of our pockets. It's coming indirectly out of our pockets because it's all federal money.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
but it's all our money any way you look at it.
So anyway, we're going to see what can happen with that too. But we, as Republicans, Don, I think we really have to analyze how we can service our district better.
We've got to lick our wounds and regroup.
Yeah, right. So
that's
any of you listeners, really, if you're interested, come down to the meeting that the Nashua Republican City Committee has this next, on
the 14th.
On the 14th of the month.
At 6:30.
At the Nashua Country Club.
Right.
So, and we will do that every second Thursday of the month. So if you can't make this one, make the next one.
And bring a friend.
And bring a friend, good. But you can ask questions and we'll answer them at that meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's so many things.
Won't be one-sided.
And we got to get ready we have a primary in February, and then we have our primary and election in September and November again.
Right.
So there'll be a number of people that are running for office. Either the representatives or the
you have
senators.
all your state reps running. We've got 27 state representatives in Nashua.
Right.
We got to get the candidates out there and get them elected.
And we also have candidates for the federal offices.
Yes.
Already. There's two.
Steve Negrin
of Nashua and Bill O'Brien, who lives in Nashua too. So he's running for Senate. And we also use, you have our website. That's
our website.
Right. Okay. Our website, NashuaGOP.org.
Right.
Okay, so we can look at there all our programs, and we have also Channel 96, which you're still looking at now if you're seeing us. Tell your neighbors about all the information that we have on these channels, that you'll see people who are answering questions. We have the superintendent of the schools here in Nashua, who was interviewed just this week. And so you can see that either on the Channel 96 or on the YouTube.
Right. Live stream on YouTube. Yeah. If people will just tune in Channel 96 and give it a shot, give it a chance, and you'll find there's a lot of good information on there.
Yeah.
That's what it is basically, is an informational station. And you'll get hooked. You'll get hooked.
And the only question you might have is what time is your show? And it's what they do to make sure they cover all the listening hours is that they, each day of the week, every show is on for one whole week, and every day is a different time.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a schedule listed of when, if you're interested in certain shows, there's a schedule listed, and you just got the time and everything.
So the People's View should be first on your list.
Well, the People's View is always first. That's number one.
Okay. Well, all the school problems, I hope those things go away reasonably well, but I'm a little bit worried about that. I'm
worried about the school problem as far as the building. I'm also worried about some of the things we're hearing about the bullying in schools that basically is not being corrected. No. In fact, it's not even being considered. It doesn't seem. Well, that's right. You know, what I think the excuse is, well, we don't want to give them publicity. Well, yeah, but you also can be transparent on what you're doing without giving them publicity. I say give them all the give them all the attention it takes. Yeah. because that's what gets people involved.
Right, right.
You know, people see that and they say, well, you know, I don't agree with that and I'm going to do something about it.
And it gets worse, and some of you don't know what's rumors and what's truth.
Right.
So you got to have transparency. Now, do we have people forming gangs now there? I mean, that's one of the rumors going around.
Yeah, that's what I hear also. I don't know.
And, you know, and it's unusual, I guess, we find that the girls now fighting each other. It's usually the guys that are beating on each other.
Well, equal opportunity, I guess. You know.
So, you know, do we have problems with, you know, with just attention, with people showing respect for one another?
I think so. And in fact, in my opinion, the biggest problem is the cell phones. You have people who are brazen enough to say things on a text or on an email or something that they won't say face to face. But then all of a sudden they get confronted with it.
Yeah.
And you know, I blame that on a lot of our problems. Our family breakdown. You go into a restaurant, 4 people come in and sit down at the table, all 4 of them have a phone and they're all on the phone instead of talking to each other. I mean, you know, it's just total family breakdown.
Yeah. And this is the way they communicate now.
That's the way they communicate.
Yeah. And that's the way they're affecting the teaching too.
Absolutely.
They don't teach cursive writing anymore because you're always on the phone.
They don't teach spelling.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, my view is if you can't spell, you can't read. I'm sorry, but if you have to keep going back, stumbling over a word and have to keep going back to the beginning of the sentence to read it all over again, you can't comprehend properly.
Well, that shows up in the scores. The reading score is terrible.
Sure.
From what they reported in the newspaper.
From what I understand, they tell them now, just spell it the way you think it should be.
Oh, really?
I mean, you know, I think different than you do.
Well, you have an accent.
No, but we do have a serious problem with the breakdown of the families. Even as far as religion goes. You know, there's so many things that stand in the way of people who say they would like to attend the church, would like to bring their family to church, but there's interference from coaches, for one thing. I know coaches that say if your child cannot make it on a Sunday morning, can't make the team. I mean, it's an alternative, you know.
No, you don't do that.
No, it's either or. It's either my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem with the attendance that's been taken away from churches.
They have to have
school programs.
Yeah. Well, what about that? Who's one of the presidential candidates that wants to put 3 hours more on the school?
Oh, Kamala Harris. Yeah. I was thinking about that this afternoon. She's doing one of 2 things. It's either basically to have the schools open and not be teaching, just have the schools open so that the parents get home before the kids.
Yeah.
So it's basically a child care thing. If it's not that, then it must be somehow or other, I don't even know what it could be that she's really thinking other than taking up child care.
Well, I think that came out today. I heard that.
Is that right?
On TV, that might be part of it. It doesn't always have to be teaching, but it could be. Now, I don't know if that means, you know, the people who are not speaking English very well are learning how to speak English. So that they can be taught and they can understand the teacher.
I don't think it has anything to do with teaching. I don't think that's what's on her mind. I think it's all about trying. You remember they used to call it latchkey kids? I think a lot of it has to do with that. They don't want kids at home
by themselves,
tending themselves and getting into trouble and exploring different things and whatnot. This way they're at the school doors are open and the kids are wandering around the school, but they're not being taught.
Well,
you know, it's a proven fact that many, many foreign countries teach less math and go to school less time per day, but have far better grades than our kids.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because of better teaching. I think that's the biggest problem when it comes to the inability of kids to be properly educated before they apply for college. How many of our kids have to have remedial reading and whatnot before they go to college?
Well, you know, that's one question I brought up to the superintendent about that and reading and remedial courses. When our high school graduates were going to our local community college and having to take remedial this, that, and the other thing. And he says, oh, they're still getting reports back, but he never expressed what they were. I never got a full answer.
I'd like to interview him one time.
I'll bring you on next time, Don.
I would tell him you're not answering my question.
Yeah. Anyway, that's one of the things I think is that there are a number of languages that they're talking, and if you don't keep them, so that they know English very well, then you're putting an extra burden on the teachers.
You are, but you're also, part of the fault is the government. There are countries in the world that take in immigrants and they give them a certain amount of time to learn English or whatever the language of that country is. And if they don't learn it in that period of time, they very nicely ask them to leave. You know, Australia is a prime example.
Oh, really?
In Australia, you're given 6 months. You either learn English or they give you a 30-day extension. If you don't learn English by then fluently enough to communicate, they ask you to leave. If you go to Australia and you open a business, from the day you open that business, you can only speak to your customers in English.
That's
and
nice.
that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Why should we have 31 different languages and have to provide interpreters? Why should we have to provide interpreters for somebody else? Why shouldn't they learn the language?
Right. And give them the chance to learn it. We have, for the adults that haven't gone to school here, we do have adult education, and the kids could go to
the Adult Learning Center down on Lake Street.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know why they
No, the path is there.
Yeah.
But somehow or other, we seem to implement that path the wrong way. We implement it backward. Instead of asking them to learn English, which is the international language anyway.
Yeah.
Instead of asking them to learn English, we're putting out everything. You buy something nowadays.
Right.
You get a paper with
languages,
15, 20 different languages on it.
Well,
why?
That's, I agree with you there. I think what people, one of the comebacks I've heard, which I think is ridiculous in a way, well, you're destroying the ethnic unity of these people. They can keep on talking to themselves in the other language, but in their English, in their voting, let's have the ballots just in English.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you can't read English, you can't vote. Do you belong here?
But that's right. You've got to tell people you have got to do this.
Right.
You don't have an option. You've got to communicate in the language of the country. What you do at home or what you do on your telephone or whatever is up to you.
I think it's great to have some of those ethnic celebrations, but you don't
Certainly
have that
it is.
for everything else.
Right.
And that's a lot of the cost of some of this stuff. How many bilingual teachers do we have to have? This is a good number of them.
When I was with the Red Cross, we were mandated to provide interpreters in 31 different languages.
Wow.
We had to have people that we could call if we had a problem with language. We had to call somebody to come and interpret. That's backward.
Yeah.
That's not the way it should be. The individual should be learning enough English to communicate. I'm not saying they have to be totally fluent, but they should be able to communicate generalities.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how we can change that. We got to get some more people
I think it's too late to change it.
Well,
It's too late
never
to change
late.
it. We have catered
So
to everyone else, and we have not promoted our own culture. We seem to put our culture aside in favor of the other guy's culture and let him teach us. And that's backward.
yeah.
That's backwards.
Well, I think the last president was one that didn't defend our culture.
Well, he didn't defend much of anything. I mean, that guy, him and his vice president, old Sleepy Joe.
Well, Joe's still going.
Joe's still going. I don't know where he's gone, but he's gone.
Well, what do you think we should emphasize as a Republican Party here in Nashua?
Well, obviously, we have to emphasize unity. We've got to work better together to get our message out to bring in other people. If we're not together, if we're all out there with a different message, people are just going to get confused.
Yeah.
It's the same as the language thing.
Yeah. I
We'd be speaking a different language.
So, what do you think's our biggest advantage, other than having a Republican governor who helps out?
I think the fact that we've got to press the fact that we're a party that doesn't believe in a lot of regulation. We don't believe in taxing everything in order to give something away. We don't believe that people should come here and automatically get all of our programs, our health care, our whatever. I think we're better stewards of the taxpayers' money, much better stewards of the taxpayers' money.
Well, that's showing up in how good our economy is. Here,
Absolutely.
the low unemployment.
Our state economy as well as national economy.
The income exceeds what our budget forecast is
Right.
doing because we've
Right.
cut taxes
Right.
and we've cut regulations.
Yeah.
And there's a number of other things. And people should realize that that's part of the reason that we're doing so well and why they're
sure.
getting better paychecks.
Right.
So,
Trump asks the question all the time, are you better off now than you were before? And the answer is always yes. Absolutely, we're better off. I know I am, I know you are, and I know everybody that I know is better off.
well, certainly.
But we've got to press the fact that we serve the people better than the other party does. The other party is all about creating programs and then figuring out how to pay for them.
Right.
And usually the only way to pay for them is to raise taxes.
Definitely, and they don't evaluate the programs either.
No.
Once they start, they're forever for most of them.
That's
anyway.
because there's plenty of money to pay for it.
Yeah,
We'll get the money.
yeah, just to watch your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, you won't be better off then.
No. Well, it's going to be a long fight, I think, and it's going to be an interesting fight.
The Republican Party has to put up a better fight. We really let ourselves down in this past election this week. We did not present our message in a good fashion. We laid down on that. I think in a way we were complacent in thinking that maybe people learned their lesson from the last 2 years and they would come out and want to change. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen.
Well,
We've got to convey that message that this is what we are and this is how we're going to make a better economy, a better lifestyle. We've got to do that. It's all about messaging, marketing ourselves better. You know,
well, we need some more people too, I think, to help us.
we need
with,
more people to
doing that.
step up to run for office to start with. We had vacancies.
Yeah,
You can't win a vacancy. The mayor, he had no opposition.
right.
But yet, I'll give the mayor credit. He campaigned. He had no opposition, but he campaigned.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, that goes a long way. That shows just how serious he was about wanting to repeat in the job. There were signs all over my ward, not just signs. Why were they there? He's unopposed. He didn't have to do anything, but he did.
Keeps his name out there.
He worked. Even though he was unopposed, he worked at it.
Let's make sure he works a little harder on justifying some of the spending that he has in line.
It's going to be difficult because of the makeup of the Aldermanic Council.
Right.
It's going to be very difficult because he's got people that basically beat to the same drum. You know, whatever he says, I've always called him a puppeteer. You know, there's a string from him to each alderman, and whichever one he wants to speak up in favor of this program, he just twists the paddle a little bit.
I see.
You know?
I see. And you served two terms on that, Alderman?
Yeah.
And you saw how smooth.
And we had a good council. We were in the minority. The Republicans were in the minority. Yeah. But it was close enough that we had debate. And there were times when either side went the other way because it was a good debate. You have no debate now.
Well, that's what I heard. I haven't gone to any of those meetings lately. But
no debate whatsoever. It's all pre-scripted.
And it's like an hour and a half meeting now instead of 2 or 3 hours.
It doesn't go that long.
It doesn't go
40, 45 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, there were times when we had meetings that went into 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Now they're over by 8:15.
So there's opportunity for people here.
Absolutely.
I mean, go to the Alderman meeting and you're allowed to speak at a certain time. So speak
there's
at that
public
time.
speaking. Yeah.
So that's a start.
It is a start.
So people in the audience, please start going to some of the meetings in town, either for the alderman or the Board of Education, or even the commissioners in fire and public works.
Speak up. Even if you're put down, speak up. Go back and speak up again. Sooner or later, you won't be put down. Sooner or later, somebody will listen.
Okay.
You can't have a debate unless you have two different sides.
Right.
That's the only way a debate works.
Okay. Well, thank you all for listening in. Please let us know if you have any things that you want us to talk about or any people to interview for the future. Just call us at the listings or the email addresses that are on the video. Thank you again. Don?
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.